Hal, how you doing? It's Michael and Don.
Good, guys. How you doing?
Good. So how did this come about? Was this your idea?
Well, it was an idea that was brought to me, actually, by Gene Afterman, our assistant GM. But it was an idea that I thought had a lot of merit. Didn't know what Alex would think or not think. Didn't really even know where Alex was at that point. I mean, we had spent so much time, Cash and I and all of his people, with trades, really until Monday when the trade deadline came and went. There wasn't much time to think about anything else. But as that came and went, and we started thinking about the next 6 to 8 weeks with the roster and the team, obviously there was a lot of stories in the media about Alex. Things were heating up. I mean, I just felt it was time when I got up there Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, that I reached out and we tried to sit down together and talk, which we ended up doing on Wednesday. And, there's really two things in the meeting I wanted to convey. The first thing was that it's been great having him here the last 2 years. I mean, he had a good year on the field last year. He did great things helping Didi, mentoring Didi last year. He's doing the same thing for Castro and other players as well. And I also wanted him to know that my family had a lot of respect for him, for what he's accomplished in his career, and for all the work, the years he's been with us, that he's done with a lot of young players. And that in no way, shape, or form did I want to see him be embarrassed here. So that was really one. And two was I just wanted to have an honest conversation with him and convey to him kind of where we're going the next 2 months, that we're going to start to bring up young players. I talked to him about the Beltran trade the way I talked to you guys last week, that the primary reason for me that it made sense was it created an avenue to start bringing up guys that really deserve a chance, not to bring them up for the sake of bringing them up, but guys like Judge, possibly Austin, Sanchez, we brought up the day I talked to Alex, guys that really deserve a chance to be here. And I just wanted him to know that with that happening, in all likelihood, it's not going to mean that he's going to be getting more at-bats. It might even mean that he'd be getting less at-bats. In other words, I just didn't want him to think that Carlos's departure, necessarily meant that he's going to be getting a lot more playing time, because it's time for the kids. We're absolutely insistent on starting to bring them up and see what they're made of, and hopefully that they contribute. And he understood that.
Now, Hal, you expand the rosters on September 1st, so did you just believe that in those 3 weeks it would have been a hindrance to bring somebody up, or would it just been too big of a distraction before you expanded the rosters?
Well, I mean, as far as bringing up a guy like Sanchez?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to bring him up sooner rather than later.
Okay.
We're still, there's no, as I said to you last week, Don, there's no white flag as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Sanchez has had a great year at AAA. Judge was hitting the ball very well in June. Tyler Austin's been killing the ball. I want these guys up now, and, we talked about last week on the show, adding some different elements to maybe shake things up a little bit and see what it does to the offense. So, you saw Sanchez. He's done well since he's come up, and, Austin, Judge, we'll see. But I think you're going to see, one or both of them sooner rather than later.
We're talking with Hal Steinbrenner here on the Michael K. Show. Every account in the media, Hal, is that this was very cordial and it was not confrontational. But the question I have, what if Alex said, I don't want to do this? Would you guys have released him?
Well, let me tell you about the rest of the conversation. So it was at that point where I really floated this idea, of how great a mentor he's been through the years and how much he can bring to the organization in that capacity. And I brought it up as an option. And, I told him, take 3, 4, 5 days, think about this as an option. Talk to the people you trust, put a lot of thought into it, and he did. And in fact, the next day we met again face-to-face, and he made his decision that he thinks, he wants to continue, first of all, contributing to the Yankees. He thinks this is one way he can do it. We talked a lot about Tampa in the conversation. I mean, we've got 2 of our top 5 or 6 overall prospects here, both shortstops, by the way, both young kids. I can't think of a better guy than Alex to come in here and really spend time with them. And we talked about Tampa exciting me the most, but we got prospects on all these clubs. So it didn't go past that. It was not an ultimatum. It was an option. And I gave him some time to think about it, and he did. And he thought it was best for him. And Michael, there just wasn't any more conversation about what was going to happen, if or if not. And if we're going to talk about hypotheticals, I guess I would say if he had come back and said, I really don't think this is for me, then I'd have to sit down with Joe and Cash and, discuss all options, including keeping him on the roster and playing him when Joe thought he could contribute.
I'll tell you what, Hal, the way I look at this is that, you did, it's a New York term, a real mensch thing. You could have just released him and there would have not have been this nice job and this still connection to the Yankees. So, 2 years ago, nobody could have ever envisioned this happening. So he obviously did repair his relationship with you and the Yankees for you to give him such a nice send-off.
Well, as I said, he's been, and you call it a send-off from off the field, I guess, but he's going to be around and he's going to be intimately involved, sooner rather than later, in shaping the careers of a lot of these young players that we're going to be counting on. But I appreciate that, Michael, I do. But he's been great the last 2 years. He's done everything we could expect of him, and the job he's done with guys like Didi and Castro has been marvelous.
Is this deal still on the table if he were to be picked up by another team after Friday?
That was not discussed either. I mean, it seems to me like he's made his decision. But, I mean, if something like that comes up, I will sit down with him face-to-face again and talk about it.
Hal, did 700 not mean anything to the organization? I mean, he's just 4 home runs away. So, obviously, it didn't mean anything in terms of marketing or just the prestige of, and again, the 700 is now a questionable number about how he got there, but that's another story for another day. Did it not mean anything to the Yankee organization?
I didn't, Michael, I honestly didn't even look into that because the bottom line is here, no white flag. We're 4 or 5 games out in the loss column, whatever the number is from the second wild card team. We're going to continue to fight, and I think some of these young kids are going to contribute. And like I said on your show last week, you may see more run production the last 2 months than you did, any of the 2 months of the first 4. We'll just have to see. Our goal is to win right now. So Alex has struggled this year. We made the decision to bring up some of these kids that deserve a chance in the hopes of getting one of these wild card spots.
So what is the plan for him playing the 3 days in Boston?
Oh, I don't know, and that's really up to Joe.
See, that's the one thing that doesn't fit to me, Hal, in all due respect. And you have held firm in this that, the Yankees are trying to get a wild card. But when Joe was asked yesterday what the plan is for Boston, he said, if Alex wants to play, I'll get him in every game. Well, he wasn't good enough to play the last month. So these games mean something. Why is he playing possibly in Boston? I don't get that, Hal.
Well, Mike, I guess you'll have to ask Joe. I mean, Joe knows how he's done against, I don't know if he's faced any of these pitchers before. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it for Joe. But, I mean, that's really a question for Joe. But I'm certainly leaving the lineup up to the manager the way I always do.
When you analyze what he's been, 12 years, I mean, this is one of the great Yankees of all time from the pure stats of it, Hal. But for you, just personally, where do the PEDs fit in for you analyzing what kind of great Yankee he actually is?
Well, I mean, look, I haven't put a ton of thought into that. I mean, obviously, you talk to Alex, he'd be the first one to admit that he made a mistake, but he's done everything right, to rectify it, everything he possibly can. So I guess you could speculate all day long about how big of an effect it had or didn't have, but it's just not for me.
Hal, I love money, and $27 would be a lot for me to part with. This is $27 million you have to pay somebody not to play. How tough is that check for you to write?
Well, it's one of the reasons why I really want him contributing in a meaningful way, and I really think in this capacity, in this respect, he's going to do just that, and he's going to have an impact that is both lasting and very significant. So, again, not something I've dwelled on or pondered for too long, Mike, but he's going to be contributing in every way he can, and I think it's going to be significant.
Yeah, I'm curious because you brought it up the last time we talked, Hal, about how when you sold at the deadline, that through social media and your contacts with the fans, that the majority of them bought in the direction that you went. Do you use that in seeing how Alex is perceived by your fan base?
No. I mean, when I told you I've been concentrating on social media, I mean, I have been curious to see what the fans think about our future and about everything that we did. I'm a guy that doesn't like to dwell on negative for any long period of time, so I mean, I don't really enjoy reading a lot of negative things. But so I haven't really focused on anything about one specific player, and him included. But it has been interesting watching the fans overall, what they think of all the players, young and veterans, and the direction that we're going.
Now, this might be something that you haven't even thought of, but I'll throw it out there because fans are asking.
Yeah.
The most hallowed ground in Yankee Stadium is right beyond the center field fence, Monument Park. Can you ever see Alex, with all the baggage that he brings, being part of Monument Park?
It's a bridge to cross when I come to it. But he's done a lot for this organization, and it hasn't just been on the field. I mean, I'm talking about players way back, like even Cano, who he was a mentor to. I mean, he's done a lot for this organization on the field, as Don talked about a few minutes ago, through the years, but also off the field that a lot of people don't know about. He's been a great leader, and he's been a great mentor.
You have this announcement that he will be with the Yankees through December 31st of 2017. If it goes well, do you want it to go longer? Do you want him to be with the Yankees for a long time?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I mean, that was just a logical date because that's his contract. But I mean, I absolutely do because I'm not going to be surprised in any way, shape, or form when I look back a year from now and realize that he's really helped kids on all levels of our system, particularly our top prospects that we hold so much value in and so much hope in. So that's absolutely something I would sit down to him and talk about. Sure.
In knowing you, Hal, you don't love hypotheticals, but I'll hit you with one. If there was a button in front of you, and you could erase A-Rod ever being a Yankee or have him with all the good and the bad that happened, what button would you hit?
Oh, listen, I think Cash put it well when he threw his ring on the table yesterday. I mean, we wouldn't have won a world championship without Alex. And again, his contributions have been off the field as much as on the field with leadership. So I don't like hypotheticals. You're right, Michael, but nonetheless, he's done a lot for this franchise, and I think the fans should understand we wouldn't have a world championship without him, and maybe we wouldn't have some of the great players we've had without him and his mentorship.
Is he allowed to do games in yes after Friday? Was that up to Flip?
Games and yes, yeah. We've thought. I mean, as far as the broadcasting thing, he and I discussed it, and as long as it's under the basic agreement and all that, I don't know what the rules are, but I have no problem with him spending time, because I know that's something he's been excited about and did well at, and so I don't have a problem with that. We haven't drawn up the specific language in the contract yet, but no, I don't have a problem with him broadcasting, if that's what you're asking.
We've talked on the air. I don't know. I guess you look at it this way: how important 2009 was. Because if that didn't happen, Hal, there'd be all kinds of questions. Did the ghosts from the old stadium come to the new stadium? I mean, have you thought about just how important that 2009 championship was?
Well, it was, and like with every year, we had a lot of money come off the payroll, and we took a lot of it and invested it back in the club. That's what my family's always done. But we also had some great young players, obviously, some good young players on that team too. So it was tremendous. The fact that it was the first year of the stadium, and I think we were in the ALCS the next year, possibly even the next two. I don't recall, but I mean, we had some good teams. We were competitive, but winning it all was magical that first year, no doubt.
So how do you think Sanchez has done the 4 games he's played?
I think he's done well. I mean, you guys tell me. You've been doing this longer than me, quite frankly.
Great arm, and he's got a 4-game hitting streak. So 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, not too bad. He looks good.
Yeah, it's exciting, and we're not done yet. So,
any thoughts, Hal? You've got one more player with a contract that expires after next year, CC Sabathia. Do you want CC here, or is something like this going to be broached with him?
Oh, I don't know. My goodness, that's a year plus away, right? So we will see. We'll see how he feels. But that's a conversation for a ways off.
Now, this is an odd question, but I'll throw it to you. You wonder what your dad would think of this deal with Alex?
I haven't, Michael. I actually haven't thought about that. Look, my dad was always the first to realize, especially as a coach, which he was, the value of leadership and being able to take a young kid under your wing and really teach him. I mean, he did appreciate that about Alex, and looking back, that would have been, something he would have held in high regard without a doubt, and his on-the-field play was great too, of course.
What I find interesting with you, Hal, getting to know you, is the differences between you and your dad, because I think 700 would have meant something to him. I think the Monument Park question would have been something he probably would have answered or had an opinion on. Is that a fair estimation of it?
Well, he's probably a better forward thinker than me. I just kind of go. I kind of go with what's in front of me, and a lot of decisions to make every day in a company this size. But there's no doubt we're different, Don. You got that right in several ways, and we're alike in some ways. So, has
this been stressful for you, Hal?
Well, I think the whole trade deadline process. I mean, these are big decisions that affect our fans, and their beliefs of what we're trying to accomplish. You do your best to convey what your thinking is, but I mean, they're big decisions, and so it's again, I did about 1/10 the amount of work that Cash and his people did. So, hats off to them again, but we'll see what the future holds.
And is anything special planned for Friday, or is it just going to be a game where Alex plays?
I don't want to get into it, but there will be some things we do, yes.
All right, cool. Hal, we thank you for coming on. Always appreciate your time, and anytime, pop on.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.